Hello friends, thank you so much for joining me today. I'd like to take you on a bit of a journey. If you can picture this with me, if you will. It is the night before the Passover weekend, Thursday the 2nd of April, AD 33. Jesus has been arrested in the Garden of Gethsemane, and he is now seated by a fire in the high priest's courtyard. Peter has also made his way into the courtyard, and he is watching from a distance. Throughout the night, though, he denies that he even knows Jesus. As he denies him the third time in the early morning, a rooster crows. And at that moment, Jesus turns and he looks at Peter. And Peter remembers the words of Jesus the night before. He had said to him, "Before the rooster crows, you will deny 3 times that you even know me." Peter is devastated. He's walked for 3 years with Jesus. They've become great friends, brothers. He knows that Jesus is the Messiah. In the garden, he even tried to defend Jesus by jumping forward and slicing off Malchus, the high priest's slave's right ear. That's how much he loved Jesus. And now, in a moment, he has denied that he even knows Jesus. He leaves the courtyard weeping, and that's the last time that he sees Jesus alive before his crucifixion. Can you imagine the feeling of failure and devastation, the feeling of torment that he must have felt? It's Sunday morning. Mary and some of the ladies arrive with exciting news. They had gone to the tomb of Jesus to anoint his body. And when they got there, 2 angels met them and said to them, "Don't be alarmed. You are looking for the living among the dead." And they told them that Jesus is alive, he's been raised. And they say to them, "Go and tell the other disciples and tell Peter too." What's interesting here is that they say to them, "Tell Peter too," including Peter, tell him, because the Lord knew how Peter must have been feeling. At this news, Peter and John run as fast as they can to the tomb. John outruns Peter, but he gets to the tomb and he just looks inside. Peter, however, runs right inside the tomb, and what he finds is amazing. He sees the grave clothes that were wrapping him are just collapsed. The body is missing from inside the grave clothes. The grave clothes are all just lying there. They are just amazed at all this and wonder what it's all about, and they make their way home. That evening, the disciples are gathered behind closed doors because they're afraid. Suddenly, Jesus is standing among them, and he says to them, "Peace be with you." He shows them his hands and he shows them his side, and they are filled with joy. But Peter is still feeling guilty. The issue of his denial has not been addressed yet. A few nights later, Peter and some of the disciples have gone fishing. They fish for the whole night and they catch nothing. The next morning, as it's getting light, they see Jesus standing on the shore. And he says to them, "Cast your nets on the other side." They do this, and they catch this amazing catch. They catch 153 fish. Peter jumps into the water, makes his way to the shore. He gets there to Jesus, and he finds a fire with fish cooking on the fire. And Jesus invites them to have breakfast. They sit down and they have a meal together. After breakfast, there's a discussion that has to take place. You see, the last time Peter saw Jesus, he was next to a fire as well, and he had denied Jesus 3 times. They have to have this discussion. Jesus says to Peter, "Do you love me?" And when he says this, he uses the Greek word agape for love. That word agape is an unconditional love. It is the love of God. It is the love that exists regardless of changing circumstances. Peter says, "Yes, Lord, you know I love you." Jesus says, "Then feed my lambs." Jesus repeats the question, "Do you love me?" Again, he uses the word agape. He's asking Peter if he loves him as Lord and Savior. "Lord, you know I love you. Then care for my sheep," Jesus says. A third time, Jesus asks him, "Peter, do you love me?" But this time, he uses the Greek word phileo. Phileo is the love between 2 siblings. It's a brotherly love. And C.S. Lewis says that this is actually a higher level of love because it is a love that is chosen and not commanded. It is a brotherly love Jesus is asking Peter if he loves him not only as God, but as a brother and as a friend. See, brothers, forgive one another. It's a love like the love between David and Jonathan. It's a love that lays its life down for one another. Jesus says, then feed my sheep. What he's saying to Peter is that if you love God, you must love people too. If we love God, we must love people too. 1 John 4 verse 20 says this: if someone says, I love God, but hates a fellow believer, that person is a liar. For if we don't love people we can see, how can we love God, whom we cannot see? And he has given us this command: those who love God must also love their fellow believers. This fulfills the great command, that we love God with all our heart, with all our mind, and with all our strength. May God bless you. Thank you.